It's album time, folks. So we have two new additions to the Buzzbin. The Buzzbin is growing more and more robust. I have a full playlist of every song we're covering on the Buzzbin this year, and then we'll eventually make a playlist of just the songs that we put in the Buzzbin. So just a heads
Okay.
up there. But I think I'm turning it over to Matt, correct? Does he have the
Nope.
first take?
Nope,
Oh,
I
it's
do.
Josh. I apologize. All yours.
No problem. We've got Geto Boys. We Can't Be Stopped. In the opening montage, you heard Mind Playing Tricks on Me, and now you're going to hear Ain't With Being Broke. Song I related to. Um,
There are a lot
Matt.
of songs I think you might have related to on this album, Josh.
Yeah.
We'll see. Matt, where are we on the stats on this one?
So Geto Boys We Can't Be Stopped comes in at number 825 in the 1990s on Best Ever Albums, number 68 in 1991, number 4,714 of all time. It is Geto Boys' highest rated album on Best Ever Albums. Did not make Rolling Stone's list, and Geto Boys are ranked number 2,270 of overall artist rankings on Best Ever Albums.
All right. Well, the Geto Boys formed in Houston, Texas in 1986. There was actually two different lineups of members before this lineup cohered and came out on this album. And they broke up. Those lineups broke up after just due to lack of success and other interests. Bushwick Bill, who was in the second lineup along kind of kept the band, kept the name and the group, and along with Willie D and Scarface make up this classic lineup of the Geto Boys. This is our first time covering them. They are no longer an active group after the death of Bushwick Bill in June of 2019 at age 52 of pancreatic cancer. They have 7 total albums, the last one being in 2005, and this is their 4th album. They are classified as rap or gangsta rap, southern rap, and this is the first time we've talked about Houston rap and southern rap as well. We've been on both coasts up till now, and this is kind of the first and one of the most well-known of those southern rap groups. They are influenced by other rap groups that came before them, primarily Run DMC, Big Daddy Kane, Schoolie D, Ice-T, NWA. They're similar to 2 Live Crew, Ice Cube, Too Short, Eazy-E, basically everybody solo in NWA. They were followed by a million people: Bone Thugs, UGK, DMX, Insane Clown Posse, Tupac, Lil Wayne, T.I., Eminem, Rick Ross. Basically all of rap from Houston is probably influenced by them to some.
Surprised they didn't say Mobb Deep. That's another group that
Yeah.
comes to mind with these guys. Yeah.
Yep. Mind Playing Tricks on Me was reached 23 on the Billboard Hot 100, and their 1996 album The Resurrection reached number 6 on the Billboard 200. Some fun facts about this: the original beat maker and member of the group, Reddy Red, left during the recording of this album, so he actually kind of has some uncredited roles on this album, and he was a member of the first and second iteration. The on this album, each member of the group has 3 solo tracks, and 3 tracks have all 3 members, so it's kind of split evenly on purpose. The earliest iterations of the Geto Boys originally spelled it as Ghetto, and Bushwick Bill says their earliest albums were a lot like Run DMC, since that's who they were trying to compete with at the time. The album cover, you may be wondering about, is a graphic picture of Bushwick Bill in the hospital after he was shot in the eye. During an altercation with his girlfriend, he actually shot himself in the eye in a struggle over the gun. Yeah. And then
How did these guys get that fly on demand? You know what I mean? Like, it's Scarface and I the other gentleman in the group. I always blank on
Willie
his
D.
name.
Yep.
Willie D. There you go. they're rocking hats, they're iced up and stuff. It's very funny how poor Bushwick Bill's in a state and they're
Yeah.
just, ride and fly
Yep.
next to him.
They had the idea to make this their cover, so they all kind of rushed to the hospital and took out the IV and Bushwick Bill's
Jesus.
equipment and made him take off his eye patch, I think, that was on, and got this because they wanted to like basically emphasize how real they were as from the area and as a rappers. Bushwick Bill later regrets using this as the album cover, and it wasn't really about that.
Was he under the influence of painkillers and other stuff, I guess? Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah.
I think he says Scarface too was also not really into it, but that's what it is. So it definitely leaves an impression. Bushwick Bill, was born with dwarfism and is classified as being was classified as a height of 3'8". I think that's kind of the other, it's an important or significant difference between other rap groups and his Bushwick Bill and his dwarfism. Memorable,
there aren't
I guess
any other
it
groups.
Would be mean. Yeah.
There aren't any other groups with a member with dwarfism, so
Yeah.
yes, that stands out.
Yep. And the Geto Boys' popularity was boosted in 1999 after 2 songs were used in Office Space movie soundtrack, Damn It Feels Good to Be a Gangster and Still. So you may remember them from that. So, Geto Boys, we're in Houston now. Matt, what did you think about this album?
Yeah, I didn't know any of this.
Yeah.
And I was actually hoping that maybe one of those songs from Office Space were going to be on here because I do like both of those songs. And yeah, I am very mixed on this. I think generally there's a couple of songs in here that I think are very good. I think easily the best song in here is Mind Playing Tricks on Me. I think I listened to this album twice, and going through the first 5 tracks right before Mind Playing Tricks on Me was not very, I wasn't feeling it that much. I think definitely Willie. Is it Willie D that does the screaming? Like he's just yelling, like his rap style. Like one of the guys does the rap style is just yelling, right? We can't be stopped, and homie don't play that. It's just it's like yelling, rap and yelling. And it's just like, I was like, oh man, I hope they mix it up because I can't take the whole album of this guy just shouting at me. And thankfully that they did. So I'm not a fan of that necessarily. I didn't think that like homie don't play that. It's just a very dated. It's like that In Living Color, Damon Wayans, Homie the Clown kind of reference. Chucky, from Child's Play. So it's interesting, kind of referencing these things that I haven't thought about in years. But like Mind Playing Tricks on Me, and Fuck a War in particular, I thought was a good song too. It's just there's some socially conscious stuff happening on here, which is very poignant. Trophy made me laugh as well, like the whole thing about the Grammys, and I particularly liked the end of that where they were like, the Grammy for most fuck words in a song goes to Geto Boys, and it's the last song on here. Which, if you listen to this album, there are certainly plenty of fuck words in this song this album.
I absolutely love like their selection of artists who are at the Grammys as well. It's so random and so arbitrary.
Travis Tritt and Elvis and. I think they reference like Guns. Well, that's a different song. Is Guns N' Roses?
Was it like the Who or somebody like they referenced to or something like that? I'm trying to remember.
The Grateful Dead are in here.
Grateful Dead, yes, that's it.
Yeah. So like some of those topics are kind of like, it's like it's poignant. Or Mind Playing Tricks on Me is kind of just like losing your mind and struggling through life. And I thought a lot of the lines on there were really good. But guys, like these overtly sexual, misogynistic songs, and it's not like. I don't think I'm a prude necessarily, but man, some of the stuff is hard to listen to. I mean, like something like The Other Level, which is just like it's like a 2 Live Crew song essentially, is one of the guys. I think I saw that it was Bushwick Bill in a hot tub with 2 women getting 2 women to agree to a threesome, and then he goes into graphic description of all the stuff that they're doing, and it's just like I can't listen to this stuff, and it's so some of the lyrics are very it's very off-putting. I'm Not a Gentleman's just like that's another hard song to get through because it's basically like women don't deserve women first and all this stuff is BS, and like women, the only I'm not bending over to pick that up for you. You should do it yourself so I can check out your ass. That type of stuff. It's just so it doesn't age well in that regard. And I also think that some of the raps are kind of not very good. I don't think there's great flow on this album. I think that some of these they reminded me of some of the old rapping styles of like the original like Run DMC or more of a simplistic kind of thing. And it also seems like some of they're like trying to squeeze in phrases and words that sometimes don't even rhyme together. So I think the flow doesn't really do much for me.
They're not really call and response in the same way that Run DMC are.
Right. It's not a call and response thing, but it's more of like a, because we've seen rap, like we did Tribe, right? We just did Tribe. We just did Gangstar. We've, even someone like Ice-T or Ice Cube, there's certain flows and like ways and phrases that they use that are like either clever or interesting. And I didn't find a whole lot of that on here. Mm-hmm. Some of the beats are okay, but there's not a lot of staying power here for me. And it's just a hard album to get through. Like I could only listen to it in my car because like I'm not listening to it at work. I'm not listening to it at home. So it's like a private listening session. So I couldn't see myself ever going back to this. But a couple of standout tracks, like particularly Mind Playing Tricks on Me, Fuck a War, and Trophy. Maybe there's some parts here that made me laugh. But yeah, I can't recommend this. So I'm gonna go thumbs down for me.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm higher on this one than you are, Matt, for sure. Mm-hmm. I liked it as an intro to Southern rap, and obviously there's different types of Southern rap, and so this is the Houston rap, and obviously Scarface himself would have a solo career that was pretty well regarded. And I think I would say there's a clear hierarchy of MC ability in Geto Boys, with Scarface being the clear one, and Bushwick Bill being the clear 3. And so it depends on kind of how you feel about the sort of the Ice Cube derivative style, what I'd say.
He sounds like
Ice
middle. Cube at times.
Yeah, that's what I'd say. In the middle, like clear, attempts to do that. But I think the standout in this group is definitely Scarface for sure. It's just such a different sound. I was definitely not even though they were influenced by the East Coast, I don't think there's a lot of East Coast like in this. There's a little bit of West Coast in the sense that the G-funk that the West Coast folks were sampling, and a little bit of what the Geto Boys are sampling here, sometimes trod in the same ground. And certainly stylistically, I think Bushwick Bill tries to do the Eazy-E lane a little bit. And like we said before, the Ice Cube lane is definitely trod here. So I think that might be, NWA is probably the closest comparative point, I think, for anybody that may be looking for something that we've covered so far.
Yeah,
but it's not really similar as well. It's definitely its own thing. I agree with you, Matt, in that the first like 4 or 5 songs, I'm like, this is starting kind of slow. And I am familiar with more Geto Boys songs, but obviously the 2 from Office Space most people know because of that. I knew one of them before Office Space, but certainly it's hard to not know those once Office Space is there. And I obviously My Mind's Playing Tricks on Me is a certified big hip hop banger as well. I knew some other ones too, like Sex Faces and Let a Hoe Be a Hoe and stuff. A famous one called Balls in My Word, right, which is one that got played quite a bit. So
is that the sequel to Gotta Let Your Nuts Hang?
Yeah, and I was like, oh, most of the songs I know from the Geto Boys are not on this one, so this is going to be an interesting listen because outside of Mind Playing Tricks, I'll be there. I definitely loved like from where My Mind Playing Tricks on Me came in for the next like 5 songs, basically from Mind Playing Tricks on Me all the way to Quickie. I found very entertaining. I thought there was a lot more wink and nod to I'm Not a Gentleman, Matt, than NWA, where I felt like there was like deep misogyny. Like I felt that song had a little bit more sense of humor where they realized they were being ridiculous in it, and as you listen to the lyrics and the scenarios, it became more and more ridiculous as the song went along. So yes, there was certainly more than a little bit of casual misogyny, but I didn't read it as literal you know,
Mm-hmm.
that
Yeah.
song. I thought it was a little bit more. And there were, as it goes on, a little bit more, the scenarios that were presented made me laugh. And boy, if that song didn't get stuck in my head, like, I'm not a gentleman. Like, just like the delivery worked really
Yeah.
well. It's for those that may not have ever heard it before. Imagine Ice Cube telling me all the ways that, you know, he's not gonna, uh, you know, like be hemmed in by any standards of, you know,
Chivalry.
chivalry. Yes, would be the best way to put it. Gotta Let Your Nuts Hang, besides being a fantastic title for a song, is a song I enjoyed as well. It's basically about being a man, you know what I mean, at least in the sense of that. And like,
Yeah.
you can't be, you know, how can I put this out? You know, in the old days, you would have said, can't be a bitch, right? You know, you gotta let your nuts hang and stuff. And that's basically the thesis of that. Fuck a War was surprisingly good social commentary.
Yep.
Boy, the Desert Storm War was on the mind of the hip hop community.
I know, really.
This is the second straight very overt politically connected thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we did Ice-T last week where it's like, we're going to talk about, like, you know, we aren't fighting this war. So I don't know if there was an element of consciousness at this time about the fact that the Vietnam War, all wars, but particularly the Vietnam War, there was, at least when I was growing up, there was an awareness that that was a war fought disproportionately by the blue collar and the poor, right?
I read too that two of the members of the group had family members that were going over there, so I think that was also
Okay.
kind of
And that makes sense.
part
And
of it.
that's a very underappreciated thing in that, not to get on the soapbox and stuff, but as someone who has members of my family who fought in wars, and, you know, especially on one side, the side that was first generation, right, and lost two people in World War II, and I had uncles who fought in Vietnam, and yeah, it's very easy to talk about going to war, especially when no one in your family has gone for generations. And so songs like that always click with me. Ain't With Being Broke, and now we're getting to the thing where all these songs are relatable in their own way to me, but in a different way than maybe they were, you know, to the Geto Boys, where it's way more of a real thing. Whereas for me, it's like you're listening to the news kind of. And Ain't With Being Broke is basically about like, I'm gonna do what I can to not be poor. And then Quickie is sort of a sex tale out of the Slick Rick, you know, side of things. Too Short would be another person that I think is a good reference point. We haven't covered him, but he's there. You know, he's doing more Freaky Tales and more Freaky Tales too. And it's, you know, and we're gonna get Snoop and people like that. I mean, Snoop starts his album with Bathtub, right? Like, so, which is, if you think this one's overt, when you hear that one. So, yeah, and it's basically another one of these, you know, braggadocious, you know, tall tales, right, about having sex. I also love any phone conversation in which someone is that overt and they're just saying, like, you know, direct things like, yeah, man, I need to break you off and stuff like that. It's like, okay, can you pick me up? Instead of like, who is bold enough to do this? So it always just cracks me up. But that stretch from Mind Playing Tricks on Me at track 6 to Quickie at number 11 is really, I think, the gem of this album and pushes it up to the recommend category for me. And Trophy, yes, is extremely funny the whole time. It's about, you know, the Grammys at that time were famously inhospitable to rap. And they were trying to bring in a rap category, but they just, you know, they had no idea what to do with it. It's kind of like when they brought in metal famously too, and they thought like Jethro Tull was metal, right? And it's the same thing started with rap. It was, you know, Young MC and stuff. Not that there's anything against Bust a Move, but that was who they were processing as rap, right? So, but yeah, I'm higher on this one than you, Matt. I like the fact that it gives me a little bit of an entree into what we're going. The Geto Boys also get way darker, like way more like horror rap almost.
And
down
this is
the
a
road.
pretty dark album. So
And this
it's
is a
like-
dark album on top of it, but they get even more
Yeah.
dark. And
Yeah.
that's where I said they're kind of like Mob Deep, where there's a lot of like horror, you know, imagery and grotesqueness that comes, and there's some of that here, but it gets worse as it goes along. And even the cover is perfect for that idea. So I would give this one a thumbs up. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I like this. I like this album as well, Matt. I totally understand where you're coming from. This album is just a lot, and it's like in your face, and it's all. There's a lot of misogyny, sex, and violence. There's some like psychosis involved in this.
And that was my favorite part.
Yeah, and it's a very like visceral album, and it is
Yeah.
very
Sure
real,
is. That's a great
real
word.
in a way. They are like making their stamp. I had no problem with their delivery. I kind of really liked kind of the off-kilterness that they bring to it. And I really just kind of was amused by like how angry they were and like how in your face and delivering the lyrics were, just like how you said it, Matt. It's like, we're gonna do this and I'm gonna be in your face and like blah blah blah. And so that really kind of was different than the other groups that we've heard before, rap wise, and even different. They're kind of different than NWA as well. NWA's kind of got a more, I don't know, laid back delivery. I don't know if that's the right word, but these guys were just like so like kind of front and center when I was listening to it. I thought the humor kind of really kind of carried me through the album, and I agree with you, John. I think there's some knowingness to it. But on the
even
other...
like in Ain't With Being Broke, they're complaining that a woman's making all this money, you know, selling her ass on the corner. And then the next one, they're like, I got to work harder because this woman's working a job all week, killing herself and stuff. And I'm like, within 2 lines, they basically completely shift the paradigm. So, yeah.
So I am going to disagree with you guys a little. I think I really kind of enjoyed the first half of the album more. And then the humor, the humor kind of carried me through the rest of it. I agree with you, Matt. The kind of sex songs are just too much for me at this point in my life, and I can't. That's not what I'm listening to an album for. And rap albums, I kind of appreciate more cleverness, and
I am the most carnal member of the group,
are.
I think. So yes,
you always like those.
John has a co-writing credit on the other level, I think. So yeah.
Yep. Bushwick Bill said that song played dividends for him the rest of his life. I saw. So your mileage may vary.
Good for him.
Yeah. But yeah, you guys didn't bring up Chucky, which I thought was an utterly demented song, and the lyrics are just insane, and there is a Child's Play sample in it, and I just really kind of appreciated how off the wall and unlike anything rap-wise that we've heard from
the
that.
flow is just bizarre.
Yeah.
Like, it's almost like he's making up it's like when somebody says, okay, let's have you freestyle right here, and somebody's like trying to make it work, but you're always afraid they're gonna run out of freestyle verses, but then they kind of keep hanging on to the next bar, but for like 4 minutes.
Yeah. No, it's impressive in its own way. There's also kind of a menace that permeates this album, especially on that song.
Some necrophilia involved in that song as well.
Yep. And there's some good, I think there's some good sampling as well, though that's not kind of the standout for me. So I hadn't ever heard the Geto Boys. I only kind of knew them by reputation, and I was never really into like Houston rap or anything, but I knew them historically, and I think they had a lasting influence on the rap community. But I'm gonna give this a slight thumbs up. It's not an album that I'm just gonna like throw on. I probably won't even listen to it again for a long time, if ever. But I appreciated kind of being in a different like universe of rap that they bring.
Can we talk also about like when I think of Houston rap, right? As much as I know about Houston, it's funny, as I was looking for this, I see that they had a whole album of this that's the Screwed variety of it.
Yes,
and of course that reminded me that Chopped and Screwed is the Houston classic. Do you want to tell the listeners maybe a little bit about what that is? Or
yeah, sure. So it's like this thing in Houston where it not only do they slow down the raps, they kind of make them, they slow them down, and they make it so that it's, I don't know, like molasses. It's hard to describe, like, you know it when you hear it. And it also kind of goes along with the Houston culture of like ghost riding the whip and like all this like food and like, I don't know, just kind of the whole like culture of rap down there with the heat and the humidity kind of like slows things down. And
it's like it's raw, but it's like a methodical, slowed down.
Like how hip hop does Sludge.
Almost, I always felt like it's supposed to feel like the heat of the air.
They lower the voices on the albums as well. So it's like kind of not only slowed down, but just kind of, I don't know, it's got this real like heavy feel to it in a way. And they often will, I mean, there was a period in the 2000s where that was kind of a thing. and the songs
Oh,
that
even
got
the
on
late
radio.
'90s, you'd hear
Yeah.
about like Cash Money and stuff, and they'd
Yep.
always have their album and then the chopped and screwed,
Yeah,
version of it. Yeah,
Paul Wall
right.
and Lil Jon's kind of in that as well a bit.
Yep.
And but
Although
yeah,
he's from Atlanta, isn't he?
he is, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's kind of its own like subgenre in a way, and a thing that they Houston is known for, I would say, in terms of rapping. But
For sure. So I thought I'd at least bring that up because I looked at it, I was
Yeah.
like, oh, there's a whole version of this album that's the screwed version. So I was like,
Yes.
how about that? So
that'd be interesting.
I listened to some of it. It's exactly what you think the versions of the songs would sound like, Josh. So yeah.
All right.
Perfect.